Hey, folks, me and Daphne's here. Everybody else forgot to show up, so that's okay. We're going to use this time to allow for some catch up and kind of go over briefly, summarize a bit of what was discussed last podcast. So, so what a dimension or a consciousness band is equal to one DNA strand, or you could say they're one and the same. Okay, because we're talking about code. Construct is a code, so everything is coded. It all has instruction within it, and that instruction can be rewritten or written over. In this case, what we're talking about here, it's been written over, or left out, or omitted some of the code. There's ways that I described this before in regard to, I think of, there's a good way to look at it is like if you're an instrument, and this say that we're all pianos. So, because the harmonic universe, okay, it's another way to look at it is harmonic or musical because it is. Have I lost everybody yet? Anyhow, the point is you you want to be able to fix it or repair it, right? And then you want to tune it, right? And that's really our situation. And I did an example of this. So I played a certain musical passage. It was from To Claim Who We Are, actually, a section from that song that I did, which is on my YouTube channel, which is the song for those who are not members or not subscribed, rather. That's the first thing that they'll hear, okay, that song. And so I played a little bit of that on the piano that works, which I still have over there, and the one that doesn't, to kind of give you an example. And so it was the one that was skipping, and it just didn't sound right and all this stuff. That's to kind of create the illustration of how we're functioning. Our song is like that here. We're not really able to sing our song. We have the potential to sing our song, but that's how it's been. Yeah, we're missing notes and it's out of tune and all that other stuff. So, but that's the harmonic content. And so we're going to look at what the harmonic content is in regard to its simplistic form. And that would be the particle, looking at the encryption of the particle. Okay, so we're just going to break that down. So a DNA strand consists of 12 magnetic base codes and 12 electrical acceleration codes. When you're looking at the encryption of the particle, and we kind of covered this last time, when you're looking at a Keylon and Keylon grid is what you see, that two-dimensional Merkaba shape. So that's the movement that you have that's taking place or the circulation that's creating that form. So when we're talking about harmonics or the notes on a keyboard, and let's go back to that and subdivide like a octave, which means 8, right? 8 notes like in a major scale. We'll just use that as an example. Okay, so let's subdivide that within the temperament tuning we have for as Western music. Okay, so you can subdivide that into 12 notes. It's done in a way so that it's in harmony with one another. It's not random notes that people can throw together and saying, because I see this online where they say, oh, these are the right frequencies to use for music. Well, you have to use equal temperament in order for you to be able to create music. Otherwise, it sounds like you took a piano and threw it down a three flight of stairs. It doesn't work that way. It's completely out of tune. It sounds horrible. Now, if you want to isolate certain frequencies, that's fine, but it has nothing to do with music. It has to be tempered in a way that it can be harmonized with one another. So that's what I'm referring to here. It's a better example of what I'm talking about. So taking those 8 notes, and you're able to subdivide, that's known as a chromatic scale. Okay, so you have 12. When you're looking at a DNA strand, makes it easier because then you can see, oh, there's 12 aspects of that makes up that DNA strand, which are these subharmonics. Well, what is a subharmonic? Well, subharmonic is, again, we're looking at the magnetic base code and the electrical acceleration code. It's a combination of both of those together, right? One subharmonic is equal to one fire letter. That's another one. Why? It's right in the terminology being used. Fire means, if you're thinking like in a car and you think of a spark plug, It's firing, right? Which is creating combustion and energy, therefore, to be able to produce. And because of the mechanism and the design of the engine, it enables it to be able to move, right? Fundamentally, okay? So we're talking about the same thing here. It's an arc. It's igniting, which is causing a chain reaction, okay? So if you have a subharmonic one, which is a fire letter, okay, and which is a fire letter is really a combination of the particum and the particule together, right? That counter-rotating field. So the particum of the particule is known as being magnetic base of that code. And the particule is known as being the electrical or acceleration aspect of that code, right? Without going into the idea of how electrical and magnetic works and the way it allows for density and all this other stuff, that's not relevant to what we're talking about at this point because it has many functions, but we're talking about DNA and the transmutation of DNA. So again, to say these are counter-rotating fields, and you can see this within the Merkaba, okay, because it's the same thing. It's really the same thing. You'll notice a lot of terms are used that are different terms for this, what I'm talking about, because of function. Because if you look at this, if you look at the encryption of the particle, it's quite simple. But if you really come to understand that and accept it, you can see it in everything else when it starts to get really complicated. When you start looking at real complicated geometry, but you can say, well, that's that. But it's like, that's the reason why I used the analogy of the Legos before. You know, I'm kind of weird, so people don't get me unless they get to know me. But it's, you look at the Lego and you go, okay, it's a Lego. But you can do some pretty miraculous things, so to speak, if you have the ability to build, right, with those Legos. You can produce something really, really cool looking. And just, that's really what particle is, in one way to look at it. It's the building blocks for the fabric of space-time, okay, from which everything is placed or is, exists on or is created within, many ways to look at this. So I don't want to go off script too much here because it's easy to do, at least for me. So the electromagnetic spectrum, that's what we're talking about. Now we'll get into some spiritual words now, just so we can clear that up. When you start thinking about flame or flame body or ray or anything like that, what you're really referring to is frequency. And because of that particular or any particular frequency, it emits a certain, not emits, but it gives forth a certain color, right? So color and frequency is the same thing. I like things simple because it allows your intention to be clear. So instead of having to think through things and go through a maze, you could just know where the ending's at and kind of go to it, It makes it a little bit, well, it makes it easier for me, and I think it makes it easier for other people. And that's one of the main reasons why I've been focusing on the way that I've been communicating things. Maybe not here and now in this moment, but essentially overall. So what I've been doing as far as with the multidimensional anatomy, kind of bring that into picture because everything has to be practical. If you're looking to do techniques and that type of thing, it has to become practical. So what I've been doing with that is making it practical enough to where people can memorize it. So I've been coming up with certain techniques for that. And if these techniques are practiced, they don't take that long before you're able to memorize it. Because again, we're in a musical construct, and music is the best way to be able to learn anything. It really is. And this is the reason why I've done what I've done, like with the tones and the light spectra and so on and so forth, right? So when chi, ki, re, pranamana, traya, and then the colors with it and put it into a pulse and be able to sing it, and you got it memorized. All I have to do is sing it. You got it. Oh, that's right. And you just, because after a while, instead of you speaking it, you're singing it, which is actually better than speaking it. Way better. It does something when you're doing that. It just creates this rhythm and connection, and your intention expands with it.
Well, I have to say, when you've sent out to the Patreon, and Patreon, all the information for us to study, as I was reading through some of the materials, it was like I was hearing the song in my head that I watched the video, and I've listened to you sing it. It's just funny. Like as I was reading, like I was like, okay, yeah. So I'm agreeing, and it's actually is really helpful as you're going through it. It breaks things down and makes it um
Well, that's the whole
easier
intention.
to
I'm glad to hear
study
that.
and learn. Yeah, I just
I'm glad
wanted
to
you to
hear that.
know it.
Now, I guess something that I wasn't able to do, and I was hoping to do it during a podcast, and I guess this is a good time to mention it. When memorizing the axiotonal lines, realizing that we're talking about our torus field, right? Really, in the circulation process, and how it relates to our digits and how that goes through our body and down to our toes and all that. And then I took what I did with the tones and light spectra song for memorization, and it was now it's the extension of it, and I'm bringing it into now a physical interaction with it, and that's what I was doing with that when I did that one video, and I'm sitting there doing this, look like I'm signing or something, and I'm playing and singing. It's connecting that because it was the next stage for it. So then you're able to memorize that, and it just becomes part of you. So the thing of it is about singing, you don't have to be a singer. That's not relevant. It's the pulse and it's the connection that you have to it. You start to create while you're doing this, because it's not so much that you're visualizing it, although it can become a visualization because of the energy that's starting to build up. But you're moving energy and you know where it's going and why it's going where it's going as you're doing it. You're commanding it, so to speak, or you're uh, what's the better word to use here? You're in fellowship with the elements in the aspect of creation. It's you're immersed within it. There's no separation. It's not like, oh, here's this subject matter and now I have to learn it. No, you become it. Because it was already there. You now
Goes
it's
beyond
now
the
it's an
mental. You're not
yeah.
just
It's
thinking it, you're experiencing it.
if we're looking at learning the tones and the light spectra, and we're singing that, and we become the embodiment, and then we start seeing that within the axotonal line, seeing the flow of that, and then it takes us to the next step in relationship to the multi-dimensional anatomy mechanics. And then we start looking at the star crystal seals and the seed crystal seals, and we can concentrate our energy within those areas. When you're looking at the electromagnetic spectrum in relationship to color, you're looking at a hue, right? Like a chart of hue moving from one color to the other, and they blend together. They're not segmented, right? And it's moving up in frequency, okay? Or either way, frequency down or frequency up. It's moving in frequency, and it's incremental, right? So instead of having these segmentations, quote unquote, within your field or within your vertical column, essentially it should be collapsed to begin with. It should just be a flow, and that's really what it is. Okay. Uh, you'll notice within diagrams, you'll see like these funnels. Well, that's not a funnel. That's where a lot of people confuse, and I've seen this in the New Age. They confuse that as being funnels, and it's easily to be confused as being a funnel, but it's not a funnel. What it is what we're talking about here in regard to the electromagnetic spectrum or counter-rotating fields. So one of the fields is magnetic and one of the fields is electrical. So electrical acceleration, magnetic thrust or pull, base code, that's really what it's depicting. Okay. So it's not like it's something coming in like that and something. No, it's intended to come in like this. But there's been obstruction. But I'm going to say this: you can overcome all that obstruction. And I did a video a long time ago in regard to the zeta seals and how you can remove those without doing all this other stuff. Your love is more powerful than anything. The whole construct is composed through the intention of love. You can believe that or not. But that is the crown jewel. That is the crown jewel. That is the trump card or whatever you want to call it. It is the top of the pinnacle. It is what is the whole idea of being here, at least from my perspective. The challenge is, and it's very challenging here, to be able to embody the love that you've always been. That is the most important thing. Most important. You will transmute faster that way than anything else. I was in Christianity for 27 years. I've seen a lot and experienced a lot. And I noticed over my time within different congregations and so on and so forth, that there would be this focus on knowledge, and where the knowledge superseded the love, and the love took back seat. Wrong. And I see that now with other religious communities, and I won't call them spiritual communities. I'm going to call them religious communities because I think I'm a bit of an authority on the subject. Ooh, did he say that? Yes. Your love needs to come first. And the only way to do that is release all these belief systems, because these are not knowing systems. These are belief systems. When you embrace the love you have always been and begin to embody that, you see the relevancy clear as a bell for the benefit of all life. Now, there has to be wisdom coupled with love, otherwise it doesn't work here. Okay? But love rules. Okay? And it is what allows for the healing and benefit for all life. And when love comes in and corrects, it does it in the way that is beneficial. It does not take away from. It allows for expansion, and it allows for freedom. It allows for liberty, and it sets the captives free.
Interesting. And this is like one of my most favorite things that you talk about, what you were just talking about. And I can feel that. And it goes back to my experience as well in church and Christianity. Even though I was in those places, the feeling and the embodiment and the love, is what was most important. And then all that other stuff can't make its way in when you're in that state. It's just a elevated way of being. And I've watched that throughout my life. And more recently, like you're talking about, in certain communities and groups that I've been a part of, and there's people that want to, we talked about this before, that I have to be right. I have to be right. And there's, they're on opposite sides. And you're not in that point of wisdom if you have to be right.
It divides us,
If you're
and
not
that's the
in
thing.
that love, you're
We can
not
be
in
right.
that.
We can be right about ourselves, right?
Yes.
The phrase that comes to mind for me, and that I used way back when I was in Christianity, says, live your convictions, but don't preach them. In other words, if you have certain things going on that you have strong conviction of, well, then work it out within you. You don't need to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
But it's somehow it turns into a doctrine, and it just creates more division. There's no liberty and there's no joy in holding on to something. I'm right. I don't need to be right. For me, and even then I hold on loosely, But my name, with my YouTube name, RK Seeker of Truth, I'm willing to let go of everything that I knew before in a moment. I'm not talking about lacking wisdom. I'm just talking about the more that what you're saying, Daphne, the more that you connect to that aspect of self, the freer you become.